Hi everyone! So for our consumer health project, we will be covering the topic of food safety. This presentation will encompass the areas of fraud, quackery, sustainability, any historical information, marketing, health behaviors, policies to prevent morbidity and mortality, as well as barriers to behavior change. And for the audience engagement section of this presentation, we have added several checkpoints throughout the presentation that the audience would have had to answer if this was an in-person or live presentation, but for the purpose of this video, we will be going over them briefly. The members of this presentation are Haley Chu, Davina Gonzalez, Jasmine Lee, and Leslie T.
The two objectives that we will be focusing on will be 1. To evaluate historical and contemporary food safety practices and the influence on consumerism and marketing, and 2. To analyze health data and make informed decisions to prevent foodborne illness and death.
The first area that will be covered is fraud. Here are some fraud terms that are used in food safety. Food fraud can be described as manipulating the product. Food crime will be influenced by demand or availability. These are both terms that will describe intentional food crime committed for financial gain. In the end, they both hurt the consumer. The potential for food crime is influenced by a difference between availability and demand, and this creates an opportunity for criminals or fraudsters to financially benefit from these shortfalls. The different types of food fraud can be seen in the picture to the right. There is dilution, substitution, concealment, unapproved enhancement, counterfeit, mislabeling, and the gray market or forgery. Now, it is clear to see that food fraud can be harmful and hurts the consumer. So why do these brands and corporations commit food fraud? In some cases, as listed before, individuals can commit food fraud in order to gain profit and remain marketable. However, sometimes it can be that manufacturers are unaware of regulations. Here are some recent examples of food fraud. In 2009, a salmonella outbreak was linked to peanut butter in the United States. In 2013, horse meat was being sold as beef in the United Kingdom. In 2016, fake olive oil was imported into the United States. And in 2019, a wholesale beef company in New York removed USDA labels on cuts of beef and instead replaced them with counterfeit labels of a higher grade in order to sell them at a higher price. Now, it is important to ask, what is being done to prevent food fraud? There are many organizations in the United States who monitor this part of our safety. For example, our food fraud databases are being developed by the United States Pharmacopoeia, also known as the USP. This helps food manufacturers, retailers, and other stakeholders make informed decisions about food ingredients. In addition, the USP also has developed a database that monitors thousands of ingredients. The United States Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, also develops guidelines for identifications on the specifications of a food product. For example, there are certain specifications for jams and fruit preserves. Now we have reached our first checkpoint. List 2 types of food fraud. Here, the audience would have a chance to recall on the first slide and list the 2 types that were listed in the picture. For example, one might answer dilution and counterfeit.
Hi, my name is Davina and I'm going to be talking about quackery. So quackery in the food industry and food safety can come in all sorts of forms. Common examples of quackery are fast, quick, and easy weight loss treatments or programs, a miracle pill to cure any ailments or illnesses a person may have, and misdirected health claims, meaning where producers promote their product, leading consumers to believe that the food is healthier than the actual case. So, for example, being there's some sort of fruit or root or plant that's going to help them cure something when there's not really scientific evidence behind that. We often see that in many cultures, specifically my experience as a Hispanic. There are a lot of, teas and leaves that we use to maybe cure an illness. We call them hierba buenas. And that's something that a lot of families practice in their homes, yet there's still not enough scientific evidence behind that, but that's something that people do practice. Another example is diets, diet fads. We see here that foods that are low in fat, low carb, yet high in calories. A lot of people can see that now with keto and ketogenic diets, paleo diets, all of that. And B12 and HCG injections. There are many, many clinics, especially around my area in San Bernardino County, that there are many clinics that promote these type of injections for weight loss, dramatic weight loss in a short period of time, and there's not necessarily scientific evidence backing those claims, yet there are many, many consumers that are there ready to pay the amount for their treatments. And now to touch more on how quackery sells. Within my research, I found this website called quackwatch.org, and I found this quote to be really interesting. The quote says, "Modern health quacks are super salesmen." This is especially true because quackery caters to the idea of a quick fix and it appeals to vanity. Many of these products promote good health and well-being, yet there's just not enough evidence to support these claims. The three populations I'm about to discuss are the ones that are most at risk to quackery. Older adults are most at risk, especially those over the age of 65, because they may be more than likely wanting to buy some sort of vitamin, minerals, supplement, and maybe subscriptions such as alkaline water subscriptions that claim to prolong their life and, promote good health. Yet there is not enough evidence to support that. Another thing that older adults do partake in and purchase is anti-aging treatments, creams, products, all of that sort, just so that they can, prolong their life and stay young a little longer. The second group I'm going to talk about is adolescents. This group especially is vulnerable because they're at a time in their development where they don't have enough experience to make informed decisions about their health, and they just want to keep up with what's going on in society. They want to keep up with their friends. Body image, they prey on body image, weight loss programs, supplements, pills, all the things of this sort, and there's just not enough evidence. Another thing that quackery unfortunately preys on is the idea that teens are impatient and adolescents just want something quick to get them results. And unfortunately, many products within quackery build that rapport with consumers. Yet, even though it's not healthy, consumers still participate in that. Another group I'm going to talk about is athletes, and we see this time and time again, even with those that are quite famous, is steroid use and vitamin use, products such as powders, protein shakes, all things of that sort. And athletes tend to use these in the belief that these products will help them with their athletic abilities. Next, I'll be discussing sustainability within food safety. Food safety often involves many moving parts of what it means to keep our consumers and population safe. Sustainability, in short, is defined as comprehensive review of the industry's current approach to balancing environmental, economic, and social considerations throughout the supply chain. With food, there are many moving parts. There's farms, animals, manufacturers, stores, transportation to move all of the food to get from one place to another. So here are just a few categories that I thought would be more applicable to what sustainability is. The first and foremost goal within the many organizations and departments that oversee food safety is health and nutrition. We want to make sure that food is beneficial to our well-being and nutritious ways for all consumers and communities. The second thing is natural resources and the environment. All of the organizations, departments that oversee this part, they want to make sure that the natural resources that are being used are going to benefit the environment overall. We want to try to reduce our carbon footprint in this world, and we also want to make sure that we are able to get the food that we need. The third topic is social justice. This was specifically interesting to me because I didn't think about it this way, but we also want to make sure that food is attainable to all communities and consumers. We want to alleviate food deserts, and we want to make sure that we increase the access to healthy foods in all communities. Food security was also important to note because through my research, I found that sustainability and food security were often linked together. Food security also ensures that all communities and consumers have access to food and groceries.
Now we will be exploring the historical background of food safety. A study from the Hospitality and Tourism Management School in Purdue University found that historical cookbooks can document how food safety practices and beliefs have changed throughout time. The first American cookbook documented was published in 1796. The study also found that cookbooks will reflect the technology available at the time, as well as social and cultural contexts. So naturally, as the living standards change, so do cookbook materials. This in turn influences the food safety and food handling practices. For example, during World War I and II, there were more cookbooks being produced by the USDA with information of food preservation and canning. The popular normalized food safety practices can affect consumerism and marketing. For example, bleach, antibacterial hand wash, dishwashers, and stoves were all not present until the 20th century. This then leads us to the discussion of how historical information has led to consumerism and current food safety practices today. A lot of progress has been made since the 1700s due to technological advances that allow for further studies of foodborne illnesses. Consequently, this can be seen in the rising trend of ethnic restaurants in the 21st century. As there is more demand for ethnic restaurants, there is also a correlated increase in foodborne illnesses from such restaurants. This is significant to take into consideration because it is likely that current knowledge of food handling and storage are based on historical practices as well as prior known information. However, as ethnic foods may be new to a lot of food handlers, there may be a lack of knowledge regarding proper handling and storage of such ingredients. For example, sushi has become very popular, but not a lot of restaurants will properly store the raw fish as recommended FDA temperatures. As a result, consumers may contract foodborne illnesses. This is crucial because it signifies the correlation between social and cultural awareness and food safety. We have reached another checkpoint. List one example of social and cultural influences in food safety practices today. For example, one can answer that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been an increase in sanitation in food services and restaurants.
Now, despite technological advancements and recommendations from the FDA regarding food safety that Jasmine had briefly mentioned, the marketing industry thrives on their own terms as their main goal is to sell the products without putting much thought into the consumer's health or well-being. As long as they can get the product to look appealing to their audience, they will profit. Marketing and advertising for food products are no different compared to any other products such as clothing or skincare. The marketing industry strategically plan and promote certain food products to different populations depending on factors such as socioeconomic trends or demographic shifts. For ethnic and cultural groups, there is more use of targeted marketing. For instance, African Americans are more likely to turn to low-cost food due to their low socioeconomic background and lifestyle. As a result, they will be exposed to more unhealthy food as fast food chains are more likely to build in their surrounding areas. Another trend that marketers may look for is fluctuation in food consumption from time to time within the year due to religious traditions and practices. Many people observe religious traditions that may require them to fast or abstain from various foods. An example of this is no meat on Fridays for practicing Catholics during the season of Lent. So during this time of the year, fast food chains such as McDonald's may offer a discount on their Filet-O-Fish sandwiches to promote sale and tempt Catholic consumers into buying more for less. Marketers also don't shy away from advertising food to children despite their vulnerability to the media because they are the easiest consumers to persuade. Marketers will use a lot of persuasive techniques to influence children's attitudes and behaviors as they are not able to recognize good from bad yet. Their cognitive development makes them easy to target. Marketers can easily market food through their favorite movies, television shows, or cartoons, and then plaster their favorite characters onto these products in stores in order to captivate their attention. As long as the product sells, health and nutrition are not their priorities. Here's another checkpoint. How can marketing affect consumers' health and overall well-being? One answer to this question is that it can increase the rate of obesity as more unhealthy food is marketed to the public without promoting an active lifestyle.
Without a doubt, adopting healthy behaviors and practices prevent threats to individual and public health. If done so, illness and death may be avoided. Food safety is not exempt from such health practices. Practicing food safety can prevent foodborne illnesses in households. In addition, certain foodborne illnesses are contagious, which makes them a threat to the community as well. Foodborne illnesses create an unnecessary burden to public health. It further increases economic costs, loss of productivity, and reduces the quality of life for those affected. Therefore, it is critical that we take precautionary measures to prevent foodborne outbreaks and avoid unnecessary complications. Healthy People 2020 has recognized some health behaviors that consumers are challenged by. First, individuals may have a difficult time determining when certain foods are cooked at appropriate temperatures. The color of a food does not determine its readiness. On the other hand, they also have trouble storing foods at safe temperatures. It was shown that, on average, households kept their refrigerators at higher temperatures than the recommended. When storing foods, they may not separate more risky foods from less risky foods, such as unwashed vegetables, dripping raw meat, and cooked ready-to-eat foods. Lastly, consumers may not be properly cleaning hands and surfaces while cooking and eating. Acknowledging and fixing these health behaviors will lessen the chance of an outbreak. The CDC advises 4 simple steps to ensure food safety in the home, titled Clean, Separate, Chill, and Cook. The first aspect, clean. This stresses the importance of cleaning surfaces, equipment, and washing hands regularly. Hands are a major vehicle of spreading pathogens around the kitchen. In addition, pathogens may spread by placing items such as purses, jackets, and newspapers onto counters. Therefore, it is important to regularly wipe down surfaces when preparing and eating food. Next, separate. This emphasizes not cross-contaminating. Raw meat, poultry, seafood, and eggs can spread germs to ready-to-eat foods, unless you keep them separate. Using separate cutting boards and plates for raw meat, poultry, and seafood. When grocery shopping, keep raw meat, poultry, seafood, and their juices away from other foods. It is also important to separate them from other foods such as vegetables and ready-to-eat foods. Not separating these high-risk foods is the main cause of foodborne illness. The next aspect is chill. It is recommended to keep your refrigerator at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below. Remember to refrigerate perishable foods within 2 hours. Thaw frozen foods safely in the refrigerator, in cold water, or in the microwave. Last but definitely not least is to cook. It is very important to cook foods, specifically meat and poultry, to the proper temperatures to kill harmful pathogens. Most consumers do not check their prepared meats with a thermometer, allowing pathogens to remain active. If you remember and adopt these advised steps by the CDC, you will lessen your risk of becoming ill to a foodborne illness. Studies show that foodborne illnesses reach 48 million Americans per year, which is 17% of the country's population. As a result, 128,000 hospitalizations and 3,000 deaths occur annually. Although these cases are not a direct consequence of foodborne illnesses, outbreaks were identified in these cases. To promote food safety across the nation, the Food Safety Modernization Act, also known as the FSMA, was signed into law in 2011. The enactment of this act authorized the Federal Drug Administration, also known as the FDA, more authority to regulate food and allow them to take measures before rather than after someone gets sick with the foodborne illness. In addition, food manufacturers were prompted to analyze more closely if there is any risk of contamination in any step throughout their operation process. This ensures that the food distributed will be safe as possible for consumers. With the enactment of this law, the FDA is also able to now nationally recall contaminated foods, which was only voluntary prior to this act. The FSMA called for more regulation for foods produced overseas and imported. They are required to go through a foreign supplier verification program, similar to our standards. All of the aspects of this act were put in place to promote food safety to all individuals and reduce morbidity and mortality due to foodborne illnesses. You've reached another checkpoint. Why is it important to take the temperature when cooking meat and poultry? To reiterate, the color of a food when cooking it does not determine its readiness. Consumers continue not to use thermometers despite knowing that the greatest food poisoning risk is from undercooked foods. Different meats and poultry require heat at different temperatures, such as cooking whole cuts of beef, pork, or lamb at 145 degrees Fahrenheit. To ensure that you kill the harmful pathogens in these meats, it is highly recommended to use a thermometer to check the internal temperature of the meat.
Finally, we'll be discussing barriers to behavior change. Becoming an aware consumer is the most empowering change you can make in order to take back control of your health. In doing so, you are becoming a more inquisitive consumer and you will be more knowledgeable in what is beneficial to yourself and your health. Positive behavior changes to discuss is becoming a more inquisitive consumer. Asking more questions about the treatment of food or product will make you more knowledgeable in what you are receiving. Next is, if you speak another language, be sure to ask someone who understands you questions about your product or food. Next is understanding what makes a false claim or a diet fad. As you learned with quackery, if it's too good to be true, it's probably because it's not scientifically supported. And finally, learning more about food safety and handling. An example of this would be learning more about cross-contamination prevention and sanitation practices. In conclusion, food safety involves many disciplines within the health sector. There are many moving parts to what food safety is and what it means for us as consumers within our population. These were just a few topics that we felt were important to address within food safety. Thank you.